Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in. So excited for today's video. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that came up during one of my last live streams where I was talking about money. And I got a question from one of the viewers that asked, does frugality get in the way of abundance? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Are they mutually exclusive? Can you have one if you're aiming for the other? So let's dive into that topic and just go straight into it. So I will be going over what I envision as four levels of abundance, just to help give perspective, to help us differentiate between what abundance is, what frugality is, how to use one, how to use the other, how to use them in combination or use them separately. So before I do that, I want to talk about the two different words, frugality and abundance. So when I think about frugality, I think about it in terms of a practice, in terms of a behavior. So frugality would be more so like the way you spend your money, the way you think about or actually go about using your income, using the money that you have generated. And it can be in terms of like the where you spend your money, what kinds of things you spend your money on, how much of it you spend, what you decide to allocate to what portion of your life, and for what purpose. So it's a state of being economical. And instead of purchasing, let's say, the most expensive item for the sake of purchasing the most expensive item, it's about thinking in terms of practicality. Like, is this thing actually useful? And that can be in many ways. Like, is it useful in terms of like the utility, the functionality of the thing that you are purchasing? Or it can be also useful in terms of how the thing makes you feel, right? So if, for example, if I'm buying a new phone and I'm choosing between two phones, one is less expensive and the other is more expensive. But if I think in terms of like the utility and the functionality of my phone, there are many different things that I'm going to be doing on my phone on a day-to-day basis, from texting to using the camera to watching videos. So thinking in terms of what I have in store in terms of the use of this particular item, frugality, you might think about it in terms of, okay, you're purchasing the cheapest thing, when in reality, in my opinion, frugality is really about how do you make the best use of your money. So maybe I won't go for the cheapest item because the cheapest item might not give me what I need. And so let's say, for example, you're choosing, this is just an extreme example just to make a point, but if you're choosing between a flip phone and a smartphone, the cheapest item obviously is the flip phone. But what are you missing in that flip phone? You're missing the camera, you're missing the ease of texting, you're missing the screen to view those videos that I mentioned, right? So in reality, if you're going the path of purchasing the most inexpensive item, you're not necessarily getting the frugal state of mind, because you will then have to purchase that camera separately. You would then have to purchase like another item in order to watch videos. And whereas if you're thinking about like the value that you're getting per use in that particular smartphone, you're getting a lot more bang for your buck, so to speak, by purchasing that smartphone versus that flip phone, where you're going to have to add an additional two to three other gadgets and devices in order to sum up everything you're getting for that iPhone. So that's one particular way to view frugality. It's more in thinking in terms of value and the practicality, the behaviors behind the way that you use, spend, think about, and give purpose and meaning to your money. Whereas when I think of abundance, I think about it differently. I don't think of it as a practice. I don't think of it as a behavior necessarily in terms of like decision making on a day-to-day basis. I think frugality is more rooted in like your day-to-day movement, your day-to-day decision making, your day-to-day thought process behind what you do with your money. Whereas abundance, I feel like it spans many areas beyond money. It is a state of being. It's a state of being in the feeling or the energy of knowing that there is a lot out there. There is this generosity that you can have in your spirit, not just from a financial perspective, but from a relationship perspective, from an opportunity perspective, because you know that the world is plentiful and God is always giving and there's always a surplus. So it's more of that state of being where you feel a certain way, even if you are being frugal, even if you are being value based in your decision making. Abundance is more so in terms of how you allow yourself to be at ease with knowing that what you have now is only going to grow, it's only going to multiply, and it's going to continue to be enhanced and elevated through your life's journey. So, in my mind, they are pretty different. I don't think that they are, what do you call those, antonyms, where the opposite of the other. So, for example, if we're thinking in terms of opposites, when I think of abundance, the opposite of abundance is not frugality. The opposite of abundance, in my perspective, is lack. It's a lack mentality, right? Where abundance is like, there's more than enough to go around. And therefore, I don't need to hog opportunities. I don't need to hog relationships. I don't need to hog, I don't know, let's say dollar bills and money, because you know that there's more flowing to you. Whereas lack mentality is more so in terms of, there's not enough to go around. I've got to hoard everything because I don't know when is the next time I'll be able to eat. When's the next time I'll be able to have another opportunity? When is the next time I'll be able to network with a person of X, Y, and Z caliber? So that's the opposite of abundance, a lack. When I think of frugality, I think more in terms of like extravagance, extra, in terms of opposites. Whereas frugality is based on like value and like what you actually need and utility and functionality based on your lifestyle, based on who you are as a person, what you do with your life, the things that you actually use, versus having more than enough, but it being extra. It's like over, for example, if we're thinking in terms of spending, whereas frugality would be being very intentional and conscious about what you're spending money on, extravagance would be in the element of overspending or overdoing it. And I still feel like extravagance doesn't quite capture the opposite of frugality. So when I think of a better word, I will let you guys know. You'll be in the know. But for now, let's just call it extra, being the opposite of frugality. So I want to talk about 4 different levels of abundance and how I think frugality fits into those 4 different levels. Because when I think about frugality in my life, I think about it as in terms of like a foundational level, so to speak. Because in my opinion, I don't think everyone wants to be frugal forever. I feel like in general, there's this element of frugality so that today, like you're sacrificing or being frugal, being more thoughtful today so that tomorrow you can have that extravagance. You can have the extra things that you don't necessarily need, but you want. So yeah, who's to say that that in and of itself is not abundance? Who's to say that that mentality is not abundance? So let's dive into that. Give this video a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. For those of you who are new here, hello, my name is Lini. And for the past 15 years of my life and career, it has been an adventurous exploration of consistent growth towards my own life North Star, my own life mission. And I love to use my intuitive gifts to help other people do the same for themselves based on their own North Star, their own heart, and their own life vision. So let's dive into this. All right, the 4 levels that I'm talking about, I'm going to talk about it in terms of like building a house and what are the what I would imagine are the steps. Let's be clear, I'm not an architect here. I don't do city planning or any of these things, building buildings. I don't do any of that. But if I think about a building being created, what are the four steps, the four levels with which things are added on to the building when it's just flat land? And I think it warrants me stating that there should be a level of self awareness about where you particularly are along this pyramid or along these levels, because I think the danger or the trouble with abundance sometimes can be that because people want to be in this abundant mentality, they might misunderstand what abundance means and take it to mean like you have to spend, 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 spend. Like you don't care about, where the money is going because you are in the state of abundance. You know the money will flow back to you. I think that's a little bit of magical thinking. I think the magical thinking in that is about forgetting about the practicality, forgetting about being grounded in reality, forgetting about, you have life to live and what you have today. You want to think not only in terms of today, but also in terms of tomorrow, where you're going in your future, making concrete, real life, tangible, based on reality, grounded plans. So, in one of my programs that I recently created called The CEO of You, I spoke about grounded dreams. You don't just want to dream high up in the sky. You want to dream grounded dreams that are based in reality, that are based in real, tangible life things. Hello, Lola. Oh my God, it's so nice to have you here. Hello. So, grounded dreams, where it's not just like based in these high in the sky dreams as if the reality and the grounded world does not exist. You want to be in both. And that's why I think actually frugality and abundance goes together fairly well, because it's that practicality versus that state of being and that mentality. So, as I was mentioning, in terms of like the danger with sometimes overabundance, is that exactly like thinking that it's something beyond the only something that is far beyond just the real life state of where we are today. We have to understand that it's not just overspending without thinking about our future, without thinking about what exactly we are doing. Because I think if we lose that intentionality and think that if we are either smart with money or if we think that we are, adding an element of saving, then we are not in abundance. When in reality, I don't think that's the case, because abundance doesn't mean overspending. So let's dive into it. Building the house. And four levels of abundance. When I think about it, I think in terms of levels, and you want to know where you are along these levels. I think about when you build a building, you start with the foundation. And to me, for my life, this is where frugality comes into play, right? Because for me, frugality at this level means, well, if the foundation isn't built, I'm not going to start adding all these other things. I'm not going to start adding the infrastructure, the different pillars, and all of that, because the foundation needs to be laid first. And that foundation needs to be stable. That foundation needs to be sturdy, because if that foundation is not sturdy, then you're building on top of sand and it all will fall apart. So this is where I think people want to maybe like skip to a level beyond, because frugality is not fun, right? Like you're not buying all the things that you necessarily want, because you are really focusing and being intentional right now so that you can then be able to do that later on. So this foundation building is a really important part of just making sure that things are in place. And that's still abundance, because when you think about it, the more you build out a safety net for yourself, the more you can be in that abundance mindset. The more you don't have to worry, or you don't have to fear where money is coming from. You don't have to worry. You don't have to fear if money is going to be there to catch you whenever you need it. If you go through an emergency, because life does happen. We have to keep in mind we live in the real world and things happen that are out of our control. Let's say natural disasters and all of that. We know that this is just a thing that happens in the world. So if we allow ourselves to build that foundation, then we can even flourish even further, even deeper into that state of abundance. because we are in a space of safety. We are in the space of being able to catch ourselves. So, talking about the next bit, where it's the next level of abundance, infrastructure. So, when you're building a house, you lay down the foundation, then you see whenever there's construction, you start seeing like there's, I don't know what they're called, just like iron pillars that, and then you kind of like see the skeleton of the building forming. You see that there are various floors or stories, and you can envision what the building is going to look like based on that skeleton, on that infrastructure. And to me, this is in terms of abundance, it's more about being able to now start to see your vision forming, starting to see your plans coming to life, because you have this ability now to build on top of this foundation. So, whereas the foundation was you, let's say, getting your nutrition in place, making sure you understand how nutrition works and what the best kinds of foods are to put into your body. And then on top of that, you understand kind of like what, in terms of where you live, what kind of places you like to live, or how you like to live, like the kind of things you like to have in your home, the kinds of, let's say, laptops or technology or furniture or decorations that make you feel good. That would be building a foundation where once you get to know that, you can start to add more of the infrastructure in terms of like, okay, now that you know what you like, now that you know what works for you, what works for your body, now you can start to bring in more of the things that actually will give you that. So then you start to purchase better fruits, you start to purchase better produce in general, better foods. You start to eat at better restaurants. You start to live in better places. Or you start to, let's say, if you go out on vacations, you start to stay at hotels that feel a little bit more in, just restful, a little bit more relaxing, because you don't have to worry too much about some of the nitty gritty details that maybe when you were foundation building, you were willing to sacrifice a little bit more. Whereas now you're able to start to see the vision forming. So the next level in terms of abundance, and when I think of building the house, is the amenities. So you've got the foundation built, you've got your infrastructure, and now thinking about amenities. What are the different things that I would say are more of the extras start to come into place, where it's like you've gone from the necessities to the comfort to the desires. This is where desires really start to come into place. And I want to be clear again that frugality can still play a part in all of this. Because when you think about going on vacations and you think about two different locations with different amenities, you can still do that value based analysis where it's like, well, what exactly do I desire? What exactly do I use? What exactly do I need to have the time of my life at this location? So that value based thinking still comes into play. It's still in terms of like, where are you getting the most use of your dollars, your money, and putting it to the best utility and the best functionality? Necessities, comfort, and desires. Yes, thank you so much for dropping that in the chat box, Lola. You're the best. So the next one is lavish. So this is where I think most people think, when people think of abundance, I sometimes think that people think this is what abundance means, where you're like now going all out, right? Buying all the things, flying first class, staying at the Ritz, staying at the best locations, buying the most expensive cars, living in the most expensive house. So when we think of, if you were to create a vision board of abundance or a collage of abundance, what would you put on that vision board? It's likely going to be the lavish things, because those are the things that we see as unattainable or something to aspire towards, something to get us motivated to keep us going. But it's what I believe is the last level of abundance. It's not to say that the foundation was not abundance, the infrastructure was not abundance, the amenities, like Lola put in here, the necessities, the comfort, the desires, there's still abundance in all of that. But when we envision as a society what abundance looks like, we sometimes think of it as lavishness and like spending your money on all of these things because we think that's what abundance will put us into the state of abundance. And let's be clear, it will. It definitely will, but you need to also think about it in terms of, like I mentioned, self-awareness of where you are today. What can you do today? What makes sense for you today while you have tomorrow in mind, while you have your future in mind, while you have that North Star life mission and vision in mind. And as I say with every video that I create, when you're listening to someone, myself included, take the information, absorb it, and then reflect on it based on your own desires, your own North Star, your own intuition, so that you can take it and apply it to your life in a way that makes sense for you and not necessarily in a way that makes sense for other people, regardless if they're YouTubers online, whether they're PhD folks who have created books or written textbooks. Always take information and treat it as exactly that, information and data, for you to then analyze for your own life and see if it fits, if it doesn't fit, and if it doesn't fit, you know what to do with it. So that's what I think in terms of the 4 levels. Lavishness does have a place in abundance, but it's not the only thing. It's not the only thing. And even then, you can still be frugal in abundance, right? In lavishness. So if I think about, like, I don't know, Birkin bags, what are some people thinking? They're thinking about the resale value of that thing. I don't know what the right terminology is. I don't own one of these things, but they're thinking about it as an investment piece, right? So if you think about it, there's still a level of frugality in that, right? Because you're thinking in terms of the value that you are getting from that bag beyond the use of you, beyond your actual utility of it. Beyond that, like once you're done with the bag, what can you get for it? What are you going to get more for your money? Are you going to get less for your money? So there's still an element of frugality in all of these levels if you think about it. If you think about it in terms of practice and behavior for frugality versus in terms of a state of mind, a state of being for abundance. Sturdy Growth says, yes, I have been thinking about it lately. I think about how the advice and my personal discernment connect. Yes, 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 yes. That is a very, 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 very important. If I think about it in terms of like mentors that I've had in my like real tangible life, in high school, in college, when I first started in the work world, it was always, for me personally, I have always had, I would say, 10 mentors, because in my estimation, every single person in this world is a mentor for me in one particular thing, right? Because I'm not the best at everything, and no one is the best at everything. So if I'm going to someone for advice, I'm going to pick up on the things that they are the best at. Some people are the best at the lavishness. So if I want to dive into the lavishness, I'm going to go to get some advice from that person. But they might not be able to give me the best advice on other things. So I love what you said, sturdy growth, because I think that is super, super, super important. You're getting little bits and pieces from everyone and then taking all of that information and using it based on what feels right for you. Which is why when we think about people creating their own success, and we ask them, how did you become so successful? What did you do? I want to do the same thing. Whether it's like climb the corporate ladder or build a successful business, if we are asking someone for advice, they're going to give us advice based on their own personal experiences or their experiences watching other people do something similar. But their path is not necessarily going to become our path. The way they go about creating their success is not necessarily going to be the exact same way for us. But we do know that success leaves clues. There is a bit of a blueprint. There is a bit of a formula to follow. But the flavor and the how of how that comes to be and comes to pass in our lives will be different. from person to person. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about abundance and frugality. Um, if you think about the house example, there can be a house with its pure utility. You just have a place to sleep, a place to use the restroom, and a place to cook your meals. And then you start building upon it where it's like, well, now you want, I don't know, let's say a backyard. So there we go. That's the extra level beyond it. Or let's say now you want the extra amenities, a pool or a second bathroom. And then the lavishness where it's like, now there's just so much extra that you can create on top of it. A new gym, you can create um, whatever it is that you want, like a huge closet. You know, those closets that have the islands in the middle where it's like you walk into the room, the four walls are like uh, shelves, and the rods where you can hang up your clothes, and like you have these beautiful displays for your handbags and the shoes, and in the middle you have an island where you can put your, you know, your garments, undergarments. That to me is the lavishness. But do you need that in the beginning when you're building the foundation? Not necessarily, but you can still be in abundance when you're building that foundation. You can still be in abundance when you're building the infrastructure. You can still be in abundance when you have the amenities starting to add on. And you will definitely be in abundance in the lavishness. And you know what? It makes me think about Warren Buffett again. I know I mentioned him in I don't remember if it was my last live or the live before, but if we think about Warren Buffett, from what I've heard, he lives in the same old house that he has been living in for many, many, many years. So I would imagine he's a very frugal person because he's not necessarily worried about all the extras. And does that mean that he's not abundant? Well, no, because if we look at his bank account, he's got an abundance of financial resources. He has an abundance of relationships. He has an abundance of opportunities to him. So even if he is living in the same old house and wearing the same old shoes, driving the same old car, it doesn't mean he's not abundant. It just means that he has a different use for his money. And for him, it's like growing in terms of like finances. So yeah, that's what I have for you guys. And I made a video a couple of months ago called, I don't remember the exact name, but the thumbnail said Divine Feminine Riches. And it talks about how wealth is about so much more than money. And as I mentioned, I think it's the same exact thing for abundance. Abundance is about a whole lot more than just money. It's a state of being in regards to, in a state of mind, in regards to your relationships, in regards to your finances, in regards to your self-growth, in regards to your career, your opportunities, your mindset, your purpose, all of it. So it's all encompassing. It doesn't just have to do with money. Yes, yes, yes. So that's what we have today. I am in the middle of putting together all of the different assets for the Feminine Get Ish Done formula program that is launching very soon. So for those of you who are on the wait list, look out for an email because I will be sending out an introductory email letting you guys know what the timeline is, when the program will be released, and all of the sweet and sexy details, like I like to call it, of who the program is for, who the program is not for, and what you can expect. All of the details will be sent in an email very, very, very soon for those of you on the wait list. I will be dropping the link in the description box after this video so that you can get into the wait list if you're not already on it. So I'm very excited for this program. It's going to be for the woman who has big dreams and might struggle a little bit with getting it done or holding on to that self-belief. You might have bursts of self-beliefs. You might have, just fluctuating energy and motivation to getting the things done. So this program is going to be for that woman who has those big dreams and wants to live those dreams out, bring it into reality in a way that blows her mind each and every time. So I will be dropping that in the description box for all of you. I am super excited for it. And that will be about using all areas of our being, the feminine, the masculine, understanding who we are as people, the self-awareness to really get things done, get things from an idea in our head to living it in reality. So that's what we'll be doing very, 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 very soon. So these are my thoughts on abundance. I could, yeah, this is one of my favorite subjects for some reason. Not abundance in and of itself. I feel like I've somewhat lived in that mindset because of the books that I've read, because of the communities and the environments that I have been in, but I haven't very consciously spoken much about abundance or even looked into it so deeply because it's just a given in all of the self development environments and books that I have read. So when we talk about like manifestation, when we talk about abundance, like these are words that I haven't really made mine because I feel like those two concepts are just a given when you're in self development, when you're building your career, when you're building your life. They're like foundational principles that are subconscious almost that you don't even think about. But when you are consuming these motivational talks, when you're consuming these motivational pieces of content, when you're in environments that are about growth and prosperity and continuous development towards a better and better future, abundance and manifestation are a given. So I don't like to practice any of these things too deeply because it messes with my own internal levels of abundance and manifestation abilities. Because if you get too technical, too in your head about it, it can block you from doing the actual things. It can block you from manifesting. It can block you from having that abundance. So that's where we are. I'm going to let you ladies go for today. I could stay on here forever. Maybe one of these days I'll just go on a rant and just chat for over an hour. Who knows? We'll see. Just going to go with the flow of it all. But for today, thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you on the next video. And if you have any questions, any questions, I'm also going to drop my Instagram handle in the description box so that you can message me on Instagram. My inbox is open. If you have any questions, any thoughts, you can drop them in the comment box, but you can also send me a message on Instagram with any thoughts, questions that you have. So that is all for today. Thank you for being here. I will chat with you next time. Bye-bye.